Hey there, TNA fam! I'm back here to the impzonepod podcast again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. Today, I want to talk about the whole shenanigans and issue around being the number 2 promotion. Now, I want to preface this by sort of laying some groundwork, because this has been a big thing for a while, and I've tried to stay away from discussing this, actively discussing this. I've mentioned some stuff here and there. Obviously, I've mentioned stuff here and there, but it's one of those things of saying I have not wanted to get into this debate because I do not think that it is at the moment, it's certainly not a worthwhile debate to certainly have. That is fine currently. But, okay, right? Here I want to introduce this new concept to a lot of people that apparently haven't heard of this concept, which is basically planting the seeds for an idea, okay? No, apparently no one's heard about this. Dave Meltzer, never heard of this, okay? A bunch of these people that are out there on the internet have never heard of this concept of planting the seed. Basically giving you a hint of an idea, right, before, right, you actually see the whole concept, okay? Right, so that's planting the seed, right? You get this little idea in people's head, and you try to build on that idea that you put in people's head. Usually, you're talking about saying, "Hey, this is the sort of match we're gonna maybe build to, or whatever, a tease or whatever." That sort of thing. So, again, these are the sorts of things that you do to sort of get people to, again, this is a thing that they've done in some ways to say, hey, let's get people talking in some ways. And that's what we're doing here. We're here to talk about this. Do I think TNA is number 2? No, it isn't. Not right now. Can we get there in the next year? I don't know. Maybe it is possible. Of course, anything is possible. But the thing is of saying, I said this so many times before, but even if we get to number 2, I don't think we're staying at number 2 for very long. Well, at least that's my assumption, because if AEW isn't pulling their finger out when TNA comes along and says, look, now we are actively bigger than you in every metric, and that's what it, not what it means entirely, but again, in most metrics we are bigger and better than what you're doing, and we're just running away from this. That's how you knew back in the 90s, especially the Monday Night War, who was winning. WWE was mostly seen as number 1 for the most part, but WCW was beating them in the war for a long time, and it was oh, well, maybe WCW is really the number 1 promotion or whatever. There was that conversation to be had. Who was making more money? I don't really know. I don't know the financials from that period of time, whatever, any of that sort of stuff, so I'm not going to go into that. But again, just on that viewer basis, 83 weeks, for 83 weeks, WCW was beating WWE. For 83 weeks, they were the number 1 promotion, in theory, at least in that regard. And in a lot of people's, mindset, they were, it wasn't it was, super far apart. They were both contending for that number 1 slot for a lot of time as well. Even when you say, oh, WWE was beating WCW or whatever it was yes, but it's still fairly close. The numbers are really close, so it's, either one of them could have won here or there, and it could have gone the other way. Just so, happened that WWE or WCW happened to get the larger numbers, so on one night or another or whatever it was. So again, that was like, I think that was like wrestling at its zenith, absolute zenith. Like, you know, and I don't know, I know a lot of people say, oh, it's because of the internet and whatever else it is and whatnot and all of this sort of stuff. Yeah, I can agree in some regards, especially with spoilers, that it hurts a lot of wrestling, but it does make wrestling a lot more, like, accessible in some form or in some fashion. And look, I don't want to just be a tribalist here or whatever, and that sort of thing. I am a very big person that likes TNA and follows along with what they're doing. But I'm not just, like I've said this a few times as well, like I'm not just beholden to say everything that you're doing is great or everything that you're doing is working or, you know, like this is the position that we're in. You know, we need to, like, if we want to, like, that's it. Like, I think also, like, I think WWE actively wants TNA to actively be, like, closer to AEW. I don't know whether the WWE really wants TNA to ever seriously overtake AEW. I think that they just want TNA to be good competition to AEW. And that's fine with me, too. I don't care if TNA's number 2 or number 3 or, like... But I think some of the, like, discussion of saying that TNA isn't even number 4, number 5, or number 6, or whatever. Maybe if you're talking about, like, storylines, in-ring, talent pool, or any of that stuff, maybe you've got something to talk about. Yes, sure, okay. They don't have the literal best wrestlers, or all the literal best wrestlers on their roster. Perhaps from a financial standpoint, they don't have the money that AEW has or WWE has. So again, sure, they're definitely behind WWE and AEW. Perhaps from an infrastructure standpoint or whatever, sure, still same sort of thing. They're behind WWE and AEW. But to me, like, you might say New Japan or, I don't know, like, that's about it. Like, that's the, like... one of the very few other promotions that you can, like, maybe say that's in the conversation to some extent, but I would really think that they're realistically not. Yes, like, if you talk about domestic, and you're only talking about domestic, then that's a whole lot of a different kettle of fish. But, like, New Japan has no, like, besides, like, Triller TV, Fight TV, whatever... it has no, like, I think they had New Japan World, but I don't know what's going on with that. But yeah, still, I don't know. Like, they don't have any distribution deals on any TV network anywhere else in the world besides in Japan. And yes, you might say, oh, well, you know, like, WWE doesn't have distribution or whatever else it is for networks very much anymore. They're moving on to streaming services and whatnot. But those streaming services are very, very accessible. Basically, anyone and everyone can get Netflix. Like, a lot of these, like, things are very accessible to a lot of people. And, like, I think Netflix is, like, a couple billion people on it or whatever it is. So, again, it's just one of those things of saying, yes, sure, but how much more accessible can WWE be? Maybe if it's on YouTube... like, I don't know, or whatever. It, like, it would be hard to say. I mean, it is on YouTube, but I mean, like, if you got to see, like, what TNA used to do, which I think was, like, actually a really good thing of being, like, we're on YouTube as well. You can tune in on YouTube and get it through there. But yeah, like, get the shows through there, get the whole weekly episodes, get the pay-per-views or whatever. Get everything through there. Because, like, basically everyone has YouTube, so it is very much like, well, we can just watch whatever on YouTube. But again, so that's what I'm talking about. If I'm talking about who is number 1, number 2, number 3, whatever, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, any of that other stuff, it's to say, hey, okay, cool, if you're, like, in contention, you have to have not only a domestic and a good, strong domestic, like, TV deal, you have to have a TV deal or TV deals in other areas. New Japan basically doesn't have a single another distribution deal, and maybe like it'll get one eventually. I'm not trying to kneecap them or whatever against them. I'm just saying currently the situation is this is what it is. They don't have a TV deal, so it doesn't matter how good their storytelling is, how good their wrestling is, how good anything is, if nobody nor their dog can watch it. That was the same thing for TNA when they were on Pop TV and Destination America and Access TV, all this stuff that they've had before. They had a good show, but nobody nor a dog could watch it because basically nobody had that network. So again, no matter how good, like before, absolutely before, like in the Access TV days, yeah, you could, or Pop TV days, or whatever else it is, though that era, you could say TNA is number 10 or number 12, I don't know where you could put them, but again, you could put them way down the list of saying, well, they just have, such a low level of like distribution in the US or in general that no one can really watch it. Yes, you can get Triller TV, or you can get the TNA Plus app that came on later, or whatever else it is, all that other stuff. But again, like from that time period, you couldn't really, like, even if you wanted to watch, even if you were like, it was only the super fans that and the people that really cared to watch it every single week or whatever it was that kept that ball rolling, So yeah, it's not to say that some of that criticism, or not criticism, but that thought of saying, oh, they're, like, they're not, that's the thing. People don't realize, like, and it hasn't really happened yet so much, but they're no longer just in that position of saying, oh, we've got a bum network and no one nor their dog can watch us, like on Access TV, like everyone pretty much now can watch us, very easily, because you can get the AMC Plus app, you can get the TNA Plus app, you could get AMC itself in the basic packages of cable. So yeah, it's very accessible now. It's not the most accessible, obviously, but still it is way more accessible than where they were. And the TV numbers have yet to sort of read for that. But that's the thing. Like, this is a journey. The journey doesn't end on day one. Like, that's the thing. That's what I'm arguing for, I guess. Is saying, don't count our chickens till they hatch type thing. And that's the same thing for people who are like, saying we're going to be number 2, we're going to be number 2, we're going to, like, that's great in some ways, but, like, don't count your chickens till they hatch. Say, hey, we want to be the best, we want to do the best, we want to, and even that, like, we should be saying, hey, we want to be number 1, we want to be number 1, TNA number 1, like, that's what we should be looking at. We should be looking at how do we become the best, what, like, we have to start, like, again, like, we need that infrastructure. We need the level of infrastructure that, like, not like WWE has, but at least, like, the level of NXT, like, or AEW, like, where you have, like, all these facilities or all these things to say, okay, put it in the truck or rent it from wherever, and, whatever it is, it's there within 5-10 minutes or whatever it is, and not, like, or whatever it is. Maybe, yes, like, you need to actually set everything up, and maybe that takes a couple hours or whatever. But yes, like, you can't say it, and that's the same thing. Like, we need tech people to set these arenas. We need people to put these things together. We need people to do these things, so that, again, you can actually get to see, like, the product or whatever else it is. And I think, like, again, we have to think, like, the first AMC I think this was their first proper live broadcast of anything. I think literally everything else that they've had has been a taped, like, drama show or whatever else it is. So this is like their first foray into live TV. So of course there's going to be some bugs and some issues in going live for the first time and like doing it with wrestling, like, and TNA is not the biggest thing to do it with, like, but it, like, from where they were to where they are right now, at least from in the numbers, we're making some progress, and that's the point. And if we continue to, and this is the thing, like, this is why I said that as well. It's like, it's good in some ways, and I think Matt Hardy said this on a recent episode of one of his podcasts there, that it's actually really good for them to see what works and what doesn't work. You know what I mean? That's where they're gonna have to, listen to the fans. Like, like I said this, it's the fans are dependent on your show. Like, don't turn the fans away from saying you can't criticize us, or you don't know what you're talking about, or whatever. It doesn't matter if they don't know what they're talking about or whatever else it is. That's their perspective. If their perspective is that you had a shit show, well, you had a shit show. It doesn't matter what you did on that show. Like, I don't 100% agree with, like, some of the takes, but again, like, and again, some of it is people being, like, just haters or whatever else it is. So again, like, how much can you, like, take notice of, like, some of the haters? I can understand that, of saying, hey, we're not going to listen to the haters who are just here to be like, oh, everything sucked and everything was bad and everything was wrong because it's Thursday night and it's not WWE, and I don't want it to be WWE, but I want it to be WWE, and all of this stuff and whatnot. So again, that's where it's like the difficulty. And I understand that. Like, again, like, it's the same thing for every wrestling company that's ever freaking existed, is especially with, like, WWE being the most prominent thing in the wrestling space. And again, like, saying, hey, we're going to bring in some of these guys or whatever else it is. If you were to say, why would they not bring in some of these people? Like, it's just smart to say, hey, we want to get eyeballs on our product. How do we do that? Let's bring in some former WWE guys or whatever else it is. Let's bring them over and do some stuff with them. And like, then people will be saying, hey, TNA has this person and that person. All right, so again, like, I'll get back to this. I want to get back to this and hammer this in. It doesn't matter, like, yes, it certainly does matter how good your product is to an extent, but there were so many years there where WWE, despite being number one, was absolutely dog shit, dog water. And no one can disagree with that. But the thing is that it didn't matter if, like, in a sense, that WWE was dog shit. It was because they were, like, even though they were number one or whatever, that's because they had what? Distribution and whatnot. Yes, perhaps you could say, oh, they didn't really have much competition from TNA. In what area? What? Distribution. Yes, there was a time there that TNA had some dog water moments. Absolutely, I'm not going to disagree with that. But there was a time period there where they didn't have anything really bad going along, and their product was pretty good. It wasn't like 10 out of 10 or whatever else it is, but it was really quite good. But the problem was, what? Distribution. They didn't have distribution. They didn't have anywhere for people to really get to see what was going on, what was happening, and all of that stuff. And a lot of that stuff, like I said, that's why TNA in this later period was underrated at some point. It was, like, really good, and it had a lot going for it. But it was like, just no one could really watch it because no one could access the show. So that's the problem that they've had over the last few years. Now the product has taken, like, a a big downturn in some ways. And I would say, like, I've said this before, I'm not a huge fan of the WWE partnership. I don't think it's helped all that much. I actually honestly don't think it's helped all that much. Especially to, like I said this so much as well. The fact that you've sent basically, yeah, even if you say you've sent like Trick Williams and Obafemi and a couple of these other people that are considered your NXT main event level guys or semi-main event level guys or whatever else it is over there, it's like, oh, okay, great. You haven't actually sent anyone that 99.99999 whatever percent of people would know about or care about for the most part. And yes, you've sent over AJ, but it's not been for anything other than to say hi or whatever. People don't want to just have people coming and saying hi or whatever else it is. And people did want to see AJ because they were like, it's our guy or whatever else it is. And that was like a big thing for them. And they were so happy to see him, but it was like, yeah, we want to see more from him, but we probably know it's not going to happen. So again, yes, like I say, the WWE guys coming in is part of the progress, or part of the program in some ways. It's going to be part of the program. You forget, like, AJ Styles was in WWE for a hot cup of tea. You know, like, people forget that. You know, like, you forget that Taz was in WWE for a hot cup of tea or whatever it was. And a whole bunch of other people, you know, like, that were in ECW or in WCW or whatever else it is. And you forget, like, some people, you know, AJ was in WCW again as well. Like, people forget that because he was only there for, you know, a hot cup of tea or whatever. You know, he wasn't there for long, and he wasn't in a very prominent position, and the company was about to go under. But he was there, and so was Kazarian, and so was a bunch of other people, you know. So, you know, again, if you really say, is this a like, that's why I said before, what makes somebody a WWE guy, or a WCW guy, or whatever else it is? Like, obviously, I think Nick Nemeth is WWE guy, rather, sorry. But, like, now, like, if he's on the indies, are you going to sit there and complain to say, oh, you know, these indies, they shouldn't be using Dolph Ziggler or whatever? No, what are you talking about? Why are you, like, if you're saying, why would they use a WWE guy? Why do you fucking think that they would use a WWE guy? You know what I mean? Think a little bit more about, like, the statement. I mean, I understand what you're trying to say in that it's like, oh, it's WWE light, but they have less WWE superstars now than probably they've had in a long time. And, you know, again, like, even, like, for the last few years, actually, they have more now than what they had a few years ago, but it's like, this is still a very low number of, like, somewhere else guys that have made their name somewhere else. You know, like, at least Eric Young and, like, Kazarian and a couple of the other guys are at least TNA guys that you can go, oh, those are our guys, you know, from years ago. Yes, they're, you know, getting a bit stale now or whatever else it is, and it's time for a new crop of talent. Absolutely. And sometimes, like Danny Luna, like some of these people that WWE forgot, or WWE fumbled the ball with, or AEW fumbled the ball with. You forget that Mike Santana was in AEW. You forget Kazarian was in AEW, because what were they doing over there? Doing a whole bunch of hot nothing. You forget that Steve Maclin was in WWE. What was he doing over there? A whole bunch of hot nothing. You know, like, this is what I mean. Other places can be catching grounds for people if they really haven't made their name yet. So guys like that can come to TNA or to AEW or to other places. You forget how many people, like, again, if you're going to criticize TNA for having too many WWE guys and being WWE light when we have, like, I don't know, what is it? Maybe you count AJ Francis. I don't know whether you would really count that. That's on the fence to me. Alright. So, I don't know. That's, like, maybe 0.5. Let's give you like 0.5 for AJ Francis, okay? I can't remember if, you know, some of these people have been in WWE, but like I'll try my best to go through the roster and like if I know that they've been in WWE, I will say that they've been in WWE or AEW or wherever. But if I don't know, then I can't help you. But if somebody says, "Hey, this person was actually in this company," okay, cool. See, I didn't even know, and probably most people didn't even know. But let's go through it. Alicia Edwards, I don't think she's ever been to WWE. I don't know, okay? Ash by Elegance, she was in WWE for a hot cup of tea. What did she do there? Hot nothing. She was actually there for a long time. She was there for like 10 years and did like nothing. But yeah, whatever. Bear Bronson, he was in AEW. What did he do there? Hot nothing. Brian Myers obviously was in WWE. What did he do there? I think he won the tag team titles like once or something, but he was like a do-nothing jobber guy that was just there to fill a spot. Cedric Alexander, he went to WWE, obviously. So wait, where am I at? I've lost count. So AJ is half a point. Ash is a full point, I guess. So now we're 1.5 points. And I guess I'll only count WWE people. So Brian Myers is 2.5, I guess. Cedric, 3.5. Danny Luna, 0.5, so that makes it 4. Lana Del Rey, okay, 5. Eddie Edwards, I will say that's 0.5 because he was in WWE for a hot minute. I'll give you that. Elena Black, I'll say again, similar thing. She was in WWE for a hot minute, 0.5, so that's 6. Elijah, 7, because he was in WWE for a fair period. Like EY, he was in WWE, so 0.5 maybe at the most. Like you start counting it up, and it's actually quite a lot. Actually, I believe Kazarian was in there for like a hot minute too, so maybe 0.5. I don't know. Indy Hartwell, obviously, 1. Was Jason Hotch ever there? And I'm talking about current members. Not going to talk about JDC, who's just retired. So, but yeah. I don't know. Skylar, no. Not that I know of. Icarus, Navarro, King, no. Lay, yeah, sure, she was there. M, I don't think so. Mace, I don't think so. Mara, yeah, sure, she was there. Yeah, okay. There's a lot more than I think, I guess. But again, it's like all these guys that, like, I will say, like, again, all these guys or girls, whatever, that are half a point as well. Like, they were there for a hot minute, or even, like, less. Like, they were there for a hot minute, and that was it. Like, or they were in NXT UK, or they were in something else, or whatever else it was. Or they were in 205 Live, or they were in something else. So again, do you really count that as saying these were WWE guys? You think Rich Swann is a WWE guy? You think Will Ospreay is a WWE guy? You think Kenny Omega is a WWE guy because they were technically under developmental contracts with WWE? Probably not. You know? And even if somebody like Swerve Strickland was in WWE, and like a bunch of people, even MJF was in WWE. You know, he wasn't a talent on screen. What's his name? I can't think of his name now. But again, you could look at the AEW roster and go, how many of these guys were in WWE before? And you'd just about be like, nearly everyone has either been in WWE like for a long or a fair period of time, or some period of time. The Hurt Syndicate, Dustin Rhodes, all these people that you can think of. Like, even if you think, this person hasn't been in WWE. Well, they probably have. They've probably been in their developmental, or they've probably been in something else. Do you think the Young Bucks are TNA guys because they were in TNA? Do you think that they're New Japan guys because they were in New Japan? Like, where are they at? Like, that's what I mean. Like, are you going to split hairs with saying who's what, where, how, why? And I understand what you're saying, and I don't, like, disagree with the philosophy of what you're saying, of saying we shouldn't be WWE light, but it's very, very hard to get the casual audience interested in a product, especially early on, without some of that WWE, ex-WWE people that are going to be involved. Who were the people that everyone was like most excited to see in TNA at this AMC premiere or at Genesis or whatever in the last few like weeks or whatever? Jericho, big WWE guy, yes, WCW guy, whatever. But big WWE guy, yes, been in AEW as well, blah, 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 blah. But again, like, what's he most known for? WWE. Like, being a big name over there. You know. So who else was there? I can't remember who else was there. Like, Jericho was like the number one person. You would have said, oh, people don't want to see this ex-WWE guy. Yes, they frickin' do. Don't be stupid. Of course they want to see Jericho. You know? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's what the casual audience wants to see sometimes. Yes, I don't agree that the Hardys are the top tag team or whatever else it is. But I have to give them credit for the things that they do. They are, but the thing is, they are an attraction unto themselves. They actually don't need the belts. So that's where I'm like saying, hey, these guys, they don't need the belts to be an attraction. And the problem is you haven't like gone into that division and said, let's take our time to actually build some of these other teams and give them a chance to, you know, they're never going to get onto that level, especially if you're not being like, let's push some of these tag teams or let's make them just as symbolic and iconic and, you know, things like that as the Hardys. They need to be this sort of level of person. We need to form them into this level of person, or we need to like find people that are that level of person, that have that level of kind of aura and could carry this division for the next couple of years. Because that's what you're looking at, like saying, okay, we're going to sign people. We're going to sign people for like 2 years maybe, and like hopefully we can keep hold of them after that. Maybe we'll sign some people for a year or whatever else it is, and other people will sign for a little bit longer or whatever else it is. But I wouldn't expect like you sign somebody for any less than a year or 2 years or something. Because it's like, oh well, why would we sign somebody away for maybe like if you're saying, oh, it's somebody's on a handshake or whatever, basically, or more or less, they're not signed, but they're like fairly exclusive and we know they're not gonna, you know, go through the back door or whatever else it is or whatnot. Or even if like they are, like Cardona was kind of, it was like, well, it's implied that he will. So, and we know where he's at. That's fine. We don't really care if he wants to do his thing or if... That's the thing. He's taking the money. What, you know, you want the man not to take money? And you know what? Again, like, if Jericho had have appeared, you want to know how many thousands or I don't even know how many people would tune in to see Jericho appear if he had have appeared. It would have been a lot. So for you to say again, don't be WWE light, I get what you're saying, but what you're saying is try not to succeed in a sense, you know, because success comes from, oh shit, they did get Jericho or whatever. Quick phone Mark. Quick phone this person. Quick call everybody. Tell everybody. Tune into TNA right fucking now because Y2J is on TNA. Tune in now on AMC right now. how many millions of people would, or whatever, I don't even know, how many thousands of people would have tuned in to see that. Jericho's debut in TNA, you know, and it still might happen. Who knows? But that's the thing. Like, I think there were a lot of people that were kind of like scouting or whatever, you know, where it was like, they're gonna text their buddies, you know, saying, tune in now, because freaking this is happening, or whatever it is. Tune in, you know, like, holy shit, or whatever, you know. That's what gets people, you know, like, oh shit, yes, okay, cool, we've got to see what the frick Jericho's gonna do in TNA, or whatever, whoever it is, whatever it is. And again, like, I'm happy if this is a learning experience for the writers and the producers and everyone in the company, because this is what makes and it's again about the wrestlers and about the timing and things like that. And sometimes, like I said, I agree with people saying that the hook at the end or whatever else it was, where Nick Nemeth came to cash in his trophy and whatnot and all that stuff, should have been on the broadcast 100%. And like, I don't know whether they should have said, hey, can we get 3 more minutes or 4 more minutes or 5 more minutes or whatever else it is to just broadcast this thing that's, you know, going, you know, we're going off the air, you know. I don't know, but again, like, that's where you've got to say, no, we need 3 more minutes, or we need to cut 3 more minutes. And it's like, that's the thing, like, it's saying, getting concision, getting the things out there in the quickest possible format of saying, this happens, that happens, then we get to here. Like, I think, like, I can't remember what match it was. Was this on Genesis preview, I think? Or the Genesis pre-show, rather. The Vicious Vicky and Indy Hartwell match with Tessa and Mila, I think. So, yeah, like, I think that's where that was. But yeah, I'm just, like, thinking that was something to do with, like, AMC for some reason. I don't know. But yeah, like, the tag team match with the Elegance brand versus the Iconics or the Inspiration, like, I felt like there were several times where they mistimed things in that match with the ad breaks, and I think, like, a lot of other matches had the same problem, where it was like, you're going into these rest holds or whatever else it is, like, not like minutes, but like, it seems like a fairly long period of time, because it, like, you know, you really should have done that like maybe a second or two before the ad, and that's it. Like, but then again, like, sometimes, like, the timing just doesn't make sense or whatever else it is, so it's best to just go to the spot and then be like, well, we'll cut it out anyway, or we'll cut it back in at this point anyway, so it's like, that's fine, or whatever. But it's like, when it's on break or whatever else it is, it's like, oh, okay, well, those people now have to watch, you know, this person, like, in the arena or whatever, they have to watch this person in a chin hold, you know, for another minute or two or whatever else it is, just because they're on break. And it's like, and I think that's, like, the experience of, like, again, TV is very, like, live TV is very different from, like, a pay-per-view, because, like, with a pay-per-view, there are no real ads as such. Like, the ads that you're playing are your own ads, so you can be like, okay, let's schedule it at a time or in a place or wherever else it is that suits us, or if it's like, we're just going to mention it while the action does slow down or whatever else it is, or whatnot, that sort of thing. That's what we're going to try to squeeze in at a certain point. And it's like, well, not like TV or radio, but it's like some forms of radio where it's like, you have maybe 5 to 10 minutes or whatever else it is leeway of saying, we've got to play this thing or we've got to play that thing, because otherwise it's like, well, we could just never play it if we if we were halfway between a song and another song and we had to play it literally that minute or whatever it was. Like, that's where planning does come into it sometimes, where it's like, oh yeah, we've got to play this thing and it's got to be around that time. So sometimes it's like, you know, let's take a break and say, like, especially if you're in radio, you say, like, when you're announcing music or whatever, you say, that was Bob Seger or whatever it was, like, and then you say, up next we'll have some more music, but first we'll hear a message from our sponsor, or we'll hear a message from whatever, our one of our backers or whatever it is, or something like that. Or you can just play the ad spot, obviously. But yeah, things like that. Like, you do that, you play the thing, and you move on. So, and then you play another song or whatever it is. Yeah, and then you go along and do something else, like, so that's where I think that their learning process comes in, of saying, and there's got to be more direct communication of saying, like, and being very clear about, like, this especially specific time of saying, we've got 30 seconds, we've got 15 seconds, we've got 10 seconds, whatever it is. How we've got a minute or we've got 2 minutes. We need to know exactly when we're going to ad break, and that needs to be communicated to the referee so that the referee can say, hey, guys, we've got an ad break in 10 minutes or whatever it is. I don't know. It's obviously not going to be something like that. Don't bother saying if it's 10 minutes. Say maybe if it's saying in the next minute or two or whatever it is. Say, okay, we've got 1 minute till the next ad break, guys. Let's get to a point where you could get into a rest hold in about a minute. And then I'll remind you in like 30 seconds, or now I'll remind you in 15 seconds, and I'll remind you in like, all this sort of thing. I'll keep reminding you. All right, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, this sort of thing, 5 seconds to add, whatever, that's the sort of thing that you need to be like, all right, quick, chin lock, quick, or whatever it is, like, knock me down and, do this, whatever, give me a quick pin and then give me a chin lock or something. I'll kick out, like, real quick or whatever, something, like, do those. That's where, like, not only do you have to react to what the audience is telling you, but you've got to be reacting to what the referee or whatever is telling you, to say, hey, we've got an ad break in 5 seconds or whatever it is. Okay, quick, do this, do that, quick, put me down, I'll then go for chin lock, right, whatever, you've got to understand that, and this is another thing that you've got to understand, what it takes. It doesn't just take saying the fact that this show has a good program. It's saying, is that program 6 months old? Whatever it is. Even a few weeks old. Even a week old. Because, like, right now, there's spoilers for the next, I think it's the next 2 or 3 episodes of TNA, maybe? I think it's 2. Maybe 2. Anyone and their dog could go out there and look those spoilers up and say, this is what happens, that's who gets the X Division shot, this is who gets fired, whatever else it is, and whatever else that they're doing, to get to the next show, or to do whatever. This is what the matches are going to be, these are the results, these are the promos, or whatever else it is. These are the things that happen. So again, you can know what those are. If, like, next week is, like, I believe that the Trey episode, the last episode where Trey returned, was, I think that was live, wasn't it? Or was it? I think that was the live one. And they taped another one after that, didn't they? Yeah, they taped the where they won the Feast of Fire. That was the live one, And they had some debacle of like the because they were live and they were still rolling, the cameras were still rolling as if it was live, and that actually broadcast apparently. Like it broadcast, I don't know how much it broadcast, but apparently it did broadcast a fair bit of like what was going on and who and whatnot. So it was like, oh, okay, cool. So this is what, is happening. People already know it as well. So again, being live as much as possible, being live every week makes your product a better product, because not just because of saying, hey, yes, sure, there are timing issues or there are other issues that you've got to work out, the kinks or whatever else it is. But it is one of those things that makes your show better, because people don't know what the friggin' hell has happened even like a week ago or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or whatever it is, or 6 months ago, or however long ago it was that you taped all this stuff. That's why you've got to have, especially with wrestling, you've got to have live, as much as possible, live product in front of the fans in the arenas. You can't, you can do pre-tape stuff backstage or whatever else, other things, but everything to do with matches and promos in the ring has to be done live. And again, when you sometimes that's the thing, you have to realize, yes, the crowd is going to boo, or yes, you want to go with what the crowd is doing or whatever else it is that you're hearing. But the thing is, you've got to say, well, I've only got however long I've got to cut my promo, and the longer I take to cut my promo means the longer this show, or the more time's got to be cut out of something else later down the line or whatever else it is. So that we can get everything fitted in that we really need to get fitted in. And maybe again, that was a thing of them not realizing how many minutes or whatever else it was left in the show. And that sort of thing. Frankie started that, I think he started that match slowly because he knew that there was an ad coming. But that was also a heel move, classic old heel moves, whatever, type thing. But again, it was one of those things of saying, well, we should have just realized, hey, we've got another 30 seconds of this, so it's fine if you start the match and then do something else. But yeah, I do feel like everything can be looked at in a positive light of saying, this is what people were telling you you've got to realize about and I've said it so much, not just booking a show and things could go wrong or things can change or whatever else it is and whatnot, but again, saying, okay, we need to tighten things up, or or whatnot. I don't know whether the segment that happened, or the little bit of segment that happened after the main event there was meant to have been on the TV, or whether it was not meant to be on the TV. I think that it 100% should have been on the TV, because it was oh shit, what's going to happen next? That hook to tune into the pay-per-view of saying, okay, and seeing, hey, it's going to be a death match. Oh shit, So again, looking into it and saying, hey, this is where we're at. It is yeah, there were some production issues. There was some app issues, but I think it was I don't know whether it was the demand or what it was on the system or whatever. I don't know. Could have been anything. And again, this is the first time in a fair while, especially, that TNA's done a live TV, but it's the first time AMC has done a live broadcast, I'm pretty sure. A proper live broadcast. So again, and there's always those lag issues when when you do these sorts of things in live TV, you just can't really get rid of it because somebody's in a different, time or whatever else it is. So it always takes time for things to filter through that time distortion or whatever else it is. So yeah, it is what it is. People aren't always so critical of the news for having like minor delays in the feed or whatever, but it happens. So I have to look at it as saying this is constructive, or this is something that we should take to the table and say, okay, let's work on this stuff, or that's some stuff that they should hear as saying, okay, all right, maybe we mistimed things, or maybe whatever, this or that, or whatever else it was, and like maybe it wasn't a complete product quite yet, or maybe like we haven't, like you say, oh, we didn't get to have Leon on this episode. He's our like young gun, whatever. That's our new young superstar that, a lot of people have a lot of, things in. He's not a WWE guy. He's our guy. He's this young kid that, is starting to take our wrestling division by storm and the wrestling world by storm. And that does suck. But again, you've got to work with what you've got. And even with, like, Leon not being there, like, the show still ran long. So Leon would have had, like, a maybe 10, 15-minute match, like, with Myron. Yes, it would have been a great match or whatever, but that would have set a whole bunch of other things out of whack of saying, do we have time for this? Do we have time for that? And maybe like saying, oh, Dixie Carter gets like a couple minutes or whatever it is to come out and say, oh, well done to TNA or whatever else it is and all this other stuff. I don't know whether that's all that necessary or whatever else it is. I don't know. Like, you could have just had that be in a tweet or whatever else it is. Like, that's happened already. But yeah, again, like, I don't know whether that was so necessary. I liked the moment with her and hugging Bully Ray and that. That was like a cool little moment or whatever. That was actually kind of good, But, like, I don't know whether it was super necessary. Like, again, I don't know. But again, like... And again, like, some stuff I think would be saying, hey, maybe we should do this, or maybe we should do that, or maybe whatever it is. But again, it starts becoming like, well, how much time do we have, and where are we going to cut that time, and whatever else it is. So it's like, everything's got to stand out, and everything's got to kind of get its time, You can't just have a random match be like 2 minutes. Like I've said this before of saying you need to have matches be shorter, or you need to have things be shorter and more concise, and have those things that are like the more important things be like, hey, this is something that really does matter. It's going to get more than 10 minutes, I think, or whatever it is, 15 minutes. I can't remember how long the Hardys match was, but I think that could have had served with like maybe a minute or two less. I don't know, because it was like again, something that, like, yes, you need to showcase your divisions and your guys, your bigger guys or whatever else it is, and some of the like go home stuff that you need to do for the next show. But again, like, keep that short. And, get to, like, it's hard to say that the women's match, like, went too long. I think that went the right length, but I do think that the ad breaks and where they had them, and the timing for those things that were going along, like the rest holds or whatever, was mistimed during that. Same with like the main event, that had a lot of the same, like, similar issues of saying, hey, we've got an ad coming, so And like, yeah, that needs to be more clearly communicated of saying how long have we got? Not like just, um, we've got an ad coming, so we need you to stall for time or whatever. No, when is it? When is it exactly? That, like, we exactly need to know. Like, that's why, like, a show needs to know, or somebody needs to know these things for the timing, so that it's like we can get the ball to where it needs to be and get the timing for everything to be right, because otherwise you're sitting there with people being like, oh man, like this is boring now, isn't it? Because it's like they've had that chin lock on for like 30 seconds. It should be like they should be already breaking out of that, or whatever it is. But yeah, so at the end now, I think, saying review of the show, I don't review shows. But if you're like saying what can we learn, or what constructively can we take away from that show or whatever else it is, I don't think it's saying don't rely on some WWE stars, or major superstars, because those are your gateways for people who maybe have never watched the product before to say, oh shit, like Karrion Kross is here, or whoever's here is here. Holy crap. I'll call Benjamin and whoever else and all my friends to say, hey, quick, Killer Kross is in TNA or whatever. Jericho's in TNA. This person's in TNA. Da 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 da. Whatever it is. So again, that's kneecapping people. And that's like saying again, like, if you're same for AEW or WCW or anyone, it's like, oh, suddenly no one could have ex-WWE guys or whatever it is. That means like nearly just about anyone and everyone, pretty much, if you really think about it, and saying, hey, oh yeah, this guy was in WWE for a hot minute, or whatever else it was, or they were in developmental for WWE for a hot minute, or whatever else it was. But does that really count? I don't think it does, or whatever else it is. But again, saying, hey, we just never have a WWE guy. I get that's not what you're saying, but again, saying we can't have what we have is like saying, oh man, yes, we need to focus in on the newer, younger talent or whatever, and our guys or whatever. But if you really say, oh, is this really our guy or our girl, whatever, you could always have an asterisk on that of saying, well, realistically no, but kind of yes, but kind of no, but realistically yes. Like, you can always say, well, yeah, Santana made it big in TNA, like whatever it was a few years ago as a tag team guy. He went to AEW, did sweet fuck all, and then came back to TNA, and now he's like the main event guy. And would you consider to say that he's not a TNA guy or whatever? No, you'd say, hey, he's, the man in TNA. But you'd forget that he was in AEW, because what did he do? Nothing. Nothing of note. He was just a body. And yes, he had some stories, and yes, he had some matches or whatever else it is. I'm not trying to discount what he did over there, and I'm not trying to discount AEW, but was he really in that many, like, programs? Not really. He was part of the Pinnacle or whatever else it was, but he was a body in that faction. He wasn't positioned like a breakout star, and the team wasn't positioned like a super team or whatever else it was. They were just there, and they were just doing their thing or whatever else it was. And then, they didn't really have many plans for him, and he had a lot more ambition, and they were like, well, we don't see that for you, so, you can toil away and keep quiet or keep in the corner, and we don't really care, So again, like, I don't know what their perspective was, but like, having seen what he can do now, I think that they're kicking themselves and saying, maybe we should have gave him a chance. Maybe we should have, seen what we could have done with him or whatever, And it's for those people, again, who, again, go out of their way to say, it wouldn't have mattered if they had have tried to push him because, like, realistically, he's just basically AEW mid-card guy anyway, or whatever. He's only a WWE mid-card guy, basically. He's not really, like, a main event guy. It doesn't count if, you're a main event guy in TNA. It only counts if you're a main event guy in WWE or a main event guy in AEW. Whatever. No, that's not, you're trying to belittle people's accomplishments now or belittle what people can do for a brand, And maybe if this deal or a similar deal had have happened like a year ago, I think TNA would have been in a better position, a lot better position, because they had Joe Hendry. And that was like again, you can't replicate how good that was, or that feeling of saying, people wanted this, now we're going to give it to them type thing, finally, and here we go, and all of that stuff. So again, like, it was, like, I think cursed in some ways, but again, saying, hey, this is where we're going, or whatever, it could have been better. But yeah, like, again, like, I don't want to debate that. I don't want to debate, like, these things. And it's like, what are the factuals? That's where I'm at. But it is good to be debatable and say, hey, well, what classifies something as being in a better position or whatever? How does it compare number for number against whatever? You know what I mean? And again, that's the thing. If people before were saying TNA wasn't even as good as, like, Collision, like, in terms of, like, viewership or reach or whatever as Collision, but now they're saying, well, it's, like, bit better than Collision, in terms of, like, distribution and whatnot and all of that stuff. Maybe not, well, I don't know what Collision even, like, what their story is, what they're, like, doing mostly on Collision. But since it's AEW's B show, but this is, like, TNA's A show, like, yes, you can consider saying, well, we're not on the same page with where we're putting our shows when you're not going against our A show or whatever. But this, like, they're, like, yes, maybe, like, they've made some things and some things aren't the best or whatever else it is. But again, it's like, well, this is the feedback that they need to get to some extent of saying, you need to do better. These are the things you need to do better on and whatnot. That's good because, and again, they can see, how are people tuning in? When are people tuning in? Why are they tuning in? You can easily get and see this information and easily and, quickly get this sort of feedback from the fans directly at the time and that sort of thing. So saying, again, all right, again, even if you say, oh, well, whatever, we'll see what Meltzer or we'll see what Alvarez or whatever has to say, or we'll hear whatever anyone else has to say. Then they say basically the same goddamn thing. It's like, okay, well, we're starting to get the message now. Like, maybe. But again, like, the Alvarez, Meltzer, whoever else, we're not here to please them. We're here to please the wrestling fan. So you should be listening to your fans that are tuning in. And yes, again, don't listen to the haters perhaps or whatever else it is, and it's hard, and I get the toxicity of social media and everything, but saying, hey, we had, if the AMC executives and whatnot were happy with it. It was like, yes, that's good, but it could have still been a lot better, or it still could have been tightened up in some ways, or made to like get over the line a little bit more, or whatever else it was, so that again you just have that consensus, like, oh, maybe like some things were still a little bit out of whack or whatever else it was here or there, but hey, like, we still have some things to represent, what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it and all that sort of stuff. So, we're going to be here and we're going to get to see some of these things, and like people need to realize, oh yes, not just wrap it up or whatever else it is when you're having a promo in front of the crowd, but, wrap it up. You need to not listen to the boos so much and let the crowd boo. Sometimes you just need to talk over the boos to get your promo out, or get the thing out and get to the next thing as quickly as possible, because otherwise, again, at a certain point, the timing of the shows is off, so it's very important that shows run to time, so, and even then, like, again, this is a 2-hour show. Those 2 hours, flew by. Like, yeah, sure, you say we had only 3 matches or whatever else it was, and a whole bunch of segments or whatever else it was, and maybe some of them were less necessary than others or whatever. But again, like, or less important than others or whatever else it is. But again, like, at a certain point, you go, well, you could still learn from that and say, well, this is the lesson of saying, this was our first show, like we're trying to, like, I understand what you're trying to do, but like, again, when you're saying, let's bring out Dixie, and a lot of people, again, have that perspective of saying, oh, well, this is like part of the reason why I tuned out of TNA, like she's part of the reason why I was tuning out, and I don't really care to see her now, like, even if she's just here to say congratulations and well dones and whatever else it is, and whatever else, like, yeah, that's cool, that's great, or whatever else it is, but, at a certain point, that's, like, not what people kind of wanted to see, so, like, and again, that's their decision to do things, not my decision to do things, whatever. So I would say, hey, maybe show it in a tweet or something. I don't know. You could have her backstage or something, or you could have her talking to Carlos or something, and just saying, I'm so pleased with this. I'm so glad and grateful for you, or whatever else it is. I hope you guys kill it, or whatever else it is. And then you see Bully coming through, or whatever else it is, and it's like, that moment, and it's like, oh, okay, shit, here we go, but then it's like he wanders off, or whatever else it is, and then comes into the commentary, I think it was because they wanted his theme music to play and everyone to go, oh shit. But yeah, anyway, yeah, I think the right now, obviously, we're not in that position. Will we be in that position? Who knows? That is up to not the distribution, which was their biggest issue before. Now it is up to purely creative and purely the talent that is in the ring or on the mic or whatever else it is, and timing of the show and whatnot. Getting that timing going and getting, like, the infrastructure that is needed and the training that is needed and like the relaying that is needed to say, hey, we need to know exactly how long we've got. We need to know exactly how long till this ad break. Don't just tell us there's an ad break and hold on or whatever. You know, it's like any live sport. If you're having a live game of sport and the ball goes out of bounds or whatever else it is or whatnot, whatever it is, it's like, well, that would be the natural time to have an ad or whatever else it is. You know, instead of saying, oh, well, you know, after the ball comes back into play, suddenly we're going to stop play all of a sudden just because we need to roll for our sponsor or whatever else it is. You know, no, roll the sponsor when the break comes. You know, roll it immediately. Do it now. Like, if they're saying, no, you've still got 15 more seconds or whatever, after saying you've got an ad coming, tell us before, you know, saying, oh, no, it's in 15 more seconds or whatever. You know, that doesn't help us. You should have told us that before. You know, like, say you've got 15 seconds or whatever else it is first, before saying, oh, you've got an ad, so pause for a second. You know. No. Don't tell us that. You know. Just tell, or, okay, cool, we paused, do it now. No, we've got 15 more seconds, so sorry. Don't screw with us like that then, you know. Tell us we've got 15 more seconds, you know. Things like that, whatever it is. But anyway. It is impossible to know the future of anything. Will we get there one day? Who knows? But I'll be here to talk about it. Hopefully. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? We'll wait and we'll see. And hopefully it will be good. That's the point of this process. And this like level of feedback. And the people who are out there, you know, trolling, perhaps, yes, don't listen, as I say, but like if most people's consensus is like there was some issues and it wasn't perfect or whatever, I don't think people should give up on the show just because the show wasn't perfect. That's the thing. Like, I've said that before and I have to keep saying that all the time, but you know, I do think that there's still, I think people who said, oh, by the first week or two we'll know where we're at with TNA, whether it's going to be worth the time for people to tune in or not worth the time for people to tune in. You know, maybe to an extent, but what if they just suddenly have banger after banger after banger, you know, like, and then it's like, holy shit, they just had a really great show, you know, like, and then they had another really great show and another one, and you know, like, they're pumping out literal bangers of shows for weeks after it's like, whoa, they've hit their rhythm, they've found the timing, they've found everything that works, that, you know, like all these things or whatever else it is. Now it's going, now things are flowing, now things are happening, now it's, you know, getting more of that, like, feeling again. You know, so that's where it needs to be, you know. But yeah. Anyway, guys, I know you guys know all this. I know you're all very smart. But it is important for me because I am obsessed to talk about these things. And it helps the people that don't know this sort of stuff. So, and I just think it's a cool topic to discuss, and it's an important topic to discuss. You know, we're not going out here to say, well, let's stick up the joint or whatever. We're going out there to say, no, we will be the best. We will try to be the best thing that people can see, and we will try to live up to those expectations, you know. So, yes, excuse us why there are some teething issues or whatever else it is or whatnot. But again, we hope to present you a product for the next 52 weeks and in the next 3 years or so that that you can enjoy. And maybe we will get to that point of saying, and again, there are, as I said, some people who feel like we are in that conversation or worth being in that conversation now. So if there gets to be more people, again, seeing that we're like in that conversation, that's the point. That's where we should be. We should be in that conversation. We shouldn't just be saying we are, like not now at least. We should be saying this is, at least for now, what we're aiming for. We should be aiming to be in that conversation. But anyway, guys. Yeah, hope you've enjoyed this one way or the other, and hope you'll join me again in another one.